You know, whenever we want to understand something, what's the first thing we do? We define it, right? We draw this neat little box around it, slap a label on it, and boom, we feel like we've got a handle on it. But what if that instinct, especially for life's biggest questions, is actually a trap? What if the very act of defining something is what keeps us from truly understanding it?
So let's really dig into that, because this question, it pretty much flips our entire idea of knowledge right on its head. It suggests that our desperate search for certainty, for clear answers, might be the very wall we're building between ourselves and reality.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to walk through 4 big ideas. First, we'll look at what the definition trap is. Then, we'll explore the difference between building and breaking boxes. After that, we meet the accidental mystic, and trust me, that one's a trip. And finally, we'll learn on this idea of choosing contact over control.
Okay, let's start with this first big idea, the definition trap. Our journey begins with a pretty strange warning from ancient theology. Definition can be dangerous. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds completely backward, right? Defining a tiger is what keeps you from being lunch. Defining poison keeps you alive. How could a simple definition be dangerous?
Well, it all comes down to what you're trying to define. For finite things, things in our everyday world, definitions are absolutely essential. They're survival tools. But, and this is the key, the source material argues that when you take that same tool and try to use it on something infinite, like the divine, or even huge concepts like love or consciousness, that tool stops being a tool and starts being a cage.
And that's the fundamental problem, right? It's right there in the logic. The second you draw a boundary around something that is, by its very nature, boundless, you're not describing the real thing anymore. You've just created a smaller, safer, more manageable version that can fit inside your head.
And this is where we get this brilliant analogy. It's like walking up to the ocean, scooping up a single bucket of seawater, holding it up and declaring, this is the ocean. I mean, is it? You've got a sample, for sure. It's got salt, it's wet, but you've completely failed to capture its vast, wild, untameable reality. You've confused the tiny sample with the massive source.
So let's take this a step further. This act of creating a limited, manageable definition, it doesn't just misrepresent reality. It actually creates something new entirely. It creates what the source calls a conceptual idol.
Now, when we say idol, I want you to get the image of a golden statue out of your head. We're not talking about that. In this context, an idol is a thought. It's an idea of God, or an idea of love or justice that's so concrete, so fixed, that we can hold on to it, we can name it, defend it, and this is the most important part, we can use it.
And why on earth do we do this? Well, it's pretty simple. These conceptual idols are incredibly useful for our ego. We can use our perfect little definition of God's will to justify our politics. We can use it to feel morally superior to our neighbors who have the wrong definition. Or, honestly, we just use it to make ourselves feel a little less anxious in a big, chaotic universe.
Think about it like this. Imagine you drew a picture of the moon on your window. That drawing, it's manageable. You can change it, you can erase it. You're in complete control of it. But the real moon, out there in the sky, it's wild, it's vast, and it's completely beyond your control. The idol is the drawing on the window. Reality is the moon.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? The source points to this ancient spiritual practice called negative theology, or the via negativa. And it's not negative like it has a bad attitude. It's negative in its process. Instead of piling on definitions of what God is, it does the exact opposite. It's a path of subtraction, focused entirely on chipping away all the ideas of what God is not.
The best way to picture this is to think of a sculptor. A sculptor doesn't create a statue by adding more clay. They start with a big, messy block of stone, that's all our human concepts and ideas, and they just start chipping away everything that isn't the statue. The goal is to remove all the excess stuff to reveal the form that was already hidden inside.
And this really just sums up the whole difference perfectly. On one side, you have positive definition, which builds walls, creating this little box to keep an idea safe and manageable. But on the other side, you have negation, which is all about removing those false boundaries, tearing down the very walls our minds have built.
Okay, get ready because this next section is where things get really wild. This is probably the most surprising twist in this entire explainer, a potential and kind of profound link between ancient mysticism and modern atheism.
All right, let's just recap the logic real quick so we're all on the same page. We've established that if you create a fixed, rigid, human-sized definition of the divine, what you end up with is a conceptual idol, a cheap replacement for the real thing.
Now,
Think for a second about what many atheists are actually rejecting. It's usually not some vague, mysterious, boundless reality. Almost always, they're rejecting very specific, clearly defined idols. You know, the angry judge with a white beard in the sky, the cosmic vending machine you put prayers into to get stuff, the divine rulemaker.
So here is the absolutely mind-bending question the source pushes us toward. If the very first step on the mystic's path to smash false man-made idols, and an atheist is fundamentally rejecting a man-made concept of God because it's false, are they, in a way, performing a deeply spiritual act? Maybe without even realizing it?
I mean, just look at the methods side by side here. The mystic smashes conceptual idols to try and clear the way for reality. The atheist rejects these specific definitions because they are false idols. Now, their conclusions about what lies beyond the idol might be totally different, but the source suggests their method, this act of smashing idols, is surprisingly, shockingly similar.
Okay, so this whole idea isn't just some abstract theological debate. Not at all. In our final section, we're going to see how this entire framework applies to our relationships, our sense of self, and our everyday lives. It's really about making a choice. Do we want direct contact, or do we want the illusion of control?
This quote just nails the psychology behind all of this. Why are we so obsessed with labels and definitions for everything? Because it gives our ego a sense of mastery. If I can label you, or label my feelings, or put a label on a situation, I feel like I've got it contained. I feel like I'm in control.
But here's the catch, right? There's a massive trade-off. We create these defined roles, the boss, the friend, the parent, and they act like a buffer. Sure, they keep us feeling safe, but they also keep us separated from each other. We end up talking to our labels for people, not the actual messy, unpredictable people themselves. And pretty soon we're just trapped in a hall of mirrors, only ever seeing reflections of our own ideas.
And this is the real payoff. This is the promise of letting go. So many of us are afraid that if we let go of our concepts and our neat little boxes, we'll just fall into this chaotic void of confusion. But the source argues the exact opposite is true. What you find when the words finally run out isn't an abyss. It's direct, unmediated contact with reality itself.
I think this is the perfect way to wrap up our whole journey. True understanding isn't about having a perfect definition of the word water. It's not about believing really, really hard in the letters W-A-T-E-R. It's about having the courage to let go of the word and to actually experience the thing itself. It's about jumping in the pool.
So I'm going to leave you with this one last thought to chew on. The next time you see people claiming to speak for God or for truth or for justice, ask yourself this. Are they truly in contact with that vast, untameable reality? Or are they just in love with their own perfect, manageable, and controllable definition of it? The answer might just change how you see everything.